Hello there. We're here to tell you that we have so much more to offer you now at our Mixed Tees store. Not just t-shirts and hoodies, but we do have plenty of those, and new designs for that matter. You can also get mugs, and of course our brand new limited Amber Turds stained blanket. That's right, just for your bed or wherever you need it. So head on over to Mixed Tees now and get all your apparel and goodies for Midnight's Edge.
Entertainment news today. You're such a dragon gay. Everything sucks and it's no good. That comes out of Hollywood. But there's one place you can go to get all your news and info, and maybe even have a laugh or two. You know it's true. Midnight's Edge after dark is life. We stand for nerds and geeks, we will survive. From Star Wars to Jurassic Park, it's Midnight's Edge after dark. But MEAD never stops. We will keep going through the night as we keep up the culture fight. Midnight's Edge after dark is life. We stand for nerds and geeks, we will survive. From Star Wars to Jurassic Park, it's Midnight's Edge after dark.
Welcome to the program once again. As the song says, it's time for Midnight's Edge After Dark. Welcome, welcome. We got Nick with us. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Tom? How you doing?
I'm doing. How you doing?
Yeah, but how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
I don't know how I'm doing. There's fuck all to talk about. Like, that's how I'm doing.
Fuck all to talk
about. Like, all of a sudden... Like there was like a rush of news and then no news. I mean, we could talk a little bit about the cringe coming out of Washington with the whole choose your fighter crap, but I don't know if you saw that. We'll get to some of that.
I did not, but that sounds awful.
For a limited time only, we have Brian, aka that 70s rock fan.
Well, good evening. I'm just here for the shits and giggles, as we used to say.
What about giggles and shits?
Well, you could be here for that too. It depends.
If you giggle when you have the shits, I'm willing to bet you would make a mess.
Always do. Funniest part of the day.
The fact that you said that means you have experience.
So, I mean, I don't know what we're going to talk about. I know that Abe in the chat has seen Mickey 17, so maybe Abe can tell us how good it was or not good. He says it was good.
I am so oblivious of this Mickey 17 thing and whatever it is. But hello, Price. How you doing?
Good. I've seen that movie.
Well, we'll probably have you talk about it a little bit.
We'll have you talk about it, yes.
Okay.
But yes, so it's a slow news day, but we'll talk about whatever you guys ask us. The Powerpuff Girl trailer, like, look, I have zero reference for that. I never watched a single fucking episode of that show.
I have no skin in that game.
It was way past my time. And as far as the trailer, I watched it. I thought the trailer actually looked kind of funny. I won't lie, but I have zero reference for what the original show was.
I'll tell you one thing. One, it was Race Swap City. Two,
that I know they put a joke in there about that. There's a much
different attitude with they're using a lot of the modern Gen Z lingo as well, which doesn't fit in with the nature of the good nature of these sweet little innocent girls who are just there to genuinely fight crimes, and instead they gave them these adult entitled bitch attitudes. This was a big thing. And they acknowledge that it's in Townsville, which is where the cartoon took place. But Utonium is just the guy from Scrubs. He'll always be the guy from Scrubs, kind of like the way Stifler will always be Stifler. The dialogue was awful and a gigantic mismatch. Even if I put in an original show, it's awful. It's even worse when you put on mismatched characters who have no business talking like that. And they gave them basically muted color clothes of the characters. And funny enough, the girl who's supposed to be Blossom, they casted like an Asian girl to play the young youth version. And then they had a white girl play her as an adult. I'm like, so you did a race swap and then you reverted back from the adult? What? It was a really strange.
Sounds like you're outraged, Nick.
I actually liked the original cartoon. I was a fan back in the day. I did like it. I thought it was a really cool cartoon, and it was once again proof that you had an original IP of characters that kids liked at the time. And look, the Powerpuff Girls weren't a derivative of other characters. They weren't some knockoff version. They weren't the great value version of something else. They were their own thing. They had their own supporting cast. You know, the mayor. You had obviously Professor Utonium. They had their villains, Mojo Jojo, the villain him, who was basically Satan with the tutu. So they had like their whole well-rounded cast. They had a very established world. It was great. And then ended when it ended. And now they decided to make a CW version. I remember hearing about that. Oh, that's a red flag right off the bat. When the Kung Flu, one of the few things that the Kung Flu scamdemic did was make sure that shit like this didn't come out. And because people think, oh, it was canceled because the CW thought it was bad. No, that's giving the CW credit for understanding quality. They didn't. It's not a quality or lack thereof. This is a crud. We're not going to be able to make shit for a while.
There's a couple of things here, Nick. First of all, not just Nick, but I didn't realize the CW was still a thing. That's still a thing. The original cartoon, I never saw it. I mean, unless I incidentally caught it, maybe because my kids might have been watching it. I don't know, but I believe it was quite hip and funny, wasn't it, at the time? The original cartoon.
Oh yeah, it was funny. It was a really funny, amusing cartoon. It was, it's got a bunch of laughs. It's got great family, heartfelt moments as well. A lot of great, father and daughter moments as well. Which I learned, when I was watching it with my kids. At the time, I was just consuming it for the entertainment value. Girls fighting crime. But as an adult, that's cool. There's a lot of father and daughter connection. That's something I didn't notice until I watched it with my kids, because my kids like the original cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, this is not happening though. This is cancelled. This isn't going ahead.
Yeah, it's
this just happened to leak out, but Warner Brothers is coming after it hardcore. So I don't even want to try to show the trailer.
Don't.
So unlike the Married with Children trailer that I got my hands on, that was legit and hasn't happened yet. They're still chopping that around. I still can't believe that hasn't found a buyer yet. If it hasn't, this, like you said, is DOA. It's done. It was going to be on CW, but
Warner needs to save some money.
To clarify, this wasn't just canceled recently. What happened was it was canceled actually 3 or 4 years ago.
We actually talked about it at the time, yeah.
Yeah, but the trailer for it is just now getting out. So
I think they tried to reshoot it. There was a bunch of weird things going on that they initially didn't plan on scrapping it. They thought of reshooting it or something, and then at the end they scrapped it, from what I remember.
Okay.
But there's certainly copyright hitting everybody showing it. Like showing the whole thing, so on Twitter anyway, they're taking it down.
I wouldn't even chance it because they're taking it down like crazy on Twitter. Last thing you need is for Midnight's Edge After Dark to be affected by this bullshit, especially for something that looks like shit.
I do have to disagree with you on one other thing though, Nick. Stifler will not only always be Stifler, he will also be Goon.
Oh, Goon.
Doug Glatt and Goon. John William Scott I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I know you're talking about Sean. I don't know Goon.
Oh, you've never seen Goon or Goon, the Last of the Enforcers? Hockey movie.
I know what it is. And the only reason I know what it is because Sean William Scott kind of fuck you'd Kevin Smith over that movie. And at the time I was kind of like whatever about it, but now that in hindsight I'm like, fuck Kevin Smith. Because what happened was Kevin Smith was writing this hockey movie, like what the hell was it called? Like Hit Everything or Hit Anything or something. I can't remember what that was called.
I think, or maybe,
yeah, something like that. And Sean William Scott was supposed to be in it for him. And then I guess Sean got tired of waiting for him to get funding, and so Sean went and made this other movie.
Jay Baruchel and it's good. If you've never seen Goon, Nick, do yourself a favor.
And it pretty much killed Kevin's movie altogether.
Awesome. Yeah. And Liev Schreiber's in it, and he's just awesome. I'm going to leave you the fuck out.
Maria Shriver's in it?
No, Maria. No, Liev.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Maria may be in it too, but Liev hits harder.
Okay.
It's good. It's a hockey movie. So what do you expect? It's full of fights.
This Powerpuff thing, I've only watched the original show once.
Okay.
I feel like maybe I wasn't the target audience for it. I think I had a girlfriend who kind of liked it, and I watched an episode for some reason. I guess it was all right for whatever it was supposed to be. So I, like you guys said, I don't really have skin in the game. But when I looked at this trailer, all I'll say is that it didn't look very good, and I was bored watching it. Make of that what you will. And there were like different references, like tongue-in-cheek, like now we're swapping, like it was whitewashed. They had all this kind of like woke thing going on there, and it was on the CW. I assume that if somebody actually liked this show, that trailer probably would have annoyed them. I'm assuming.
Just watch the original trailer for the animated show. There's tons of them out there. So even because they're all a bunch of like short, like 8-9 minute episodes. And it was a really well developed show. Even if you're like think okay, it's not your thing, but you could still get a good idea.
No, it was fine. It was fine. I watched them. I believe I watched a few episodes. I remember watching it. I remember the animated version. Sometimes you have things that work when they're animated, but they don't work in live action. I think this was either not a good live action envisionment, or it doesn't need a live action to begin with.
The original show had it all between the great characters, the supporting cast, the established lore. They even had a memorable jingle for the opening credits, and they even had a memorable closing credits song as well. It was great. It even had some really unusually dark moments at time too in a kid's cartoon. So they were like pushing the boundaries of what they could and couldn't get away with the show, while still making Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup these, these lovable little girls who are just genuinely fighting crime. They weren't filled with these bitch girl attitudes, and probably the closest one to having I guess you could say, bitchy attitude. And I wouldn't say she was really bitchy, just had a little bit more sass than them, was Buttercup. And that was fine. I mean, it gave them all their own personalities. So obviously Blossom was the one who led the team. Bubbles was the most softest one of the group. She was the one, she's basically the one who's like, oh, hey, look at my cool stuffies. And then, however, when she needs to get serious, well, she gets into hero mode. And they were genuine heroes. And then every episode always had a little funny, wholesome, heartfelt ending. It was great. Just like pretty much just classic TV, but brought to the 90s, 2000s.
This just whatever is in this trailer, it just seems like it doesn't capture the way the animation looked, and sometimes you can get away with something in animation as preposterous and strange as it is. You kind of go with the flow because it's like cute little drawings or whatever it is. But once they tried to do this live action one, at least this version of it really didn't. It looked like they were trying to do a wink to the original, to the source material, but somehow it didn't. It looked like a cheap parody. I almost thought like it looked like something like a Saturday Night Live sketch about it, and not like old Saturday Night Live.
Well, that's kind of the tone it has. And that's the thing is, and again, I have zero reference for the show really, other than I know it was a kid's show or whatever. It was and it has that fucking CalArts B face style shit for the style or whatever, or whatever you call it. Like outside of that, I really don't know much about it. But looking at this, Price, that's what this looks like in this trailer. It looks like basically like a Mad TV or a Saturday Night Live, live action skit movie, like they're doing a trailer. Yeah,
the professor guy, was that?
That's the guy.
That's the guy from Clueless and Scrubs.
Is it Donald Faison?
Is that
From
how you say?
Scrubs,
Yeah, I
the
think
guy
that's how
from
you say his
Scrubs,
name. Yeah.
I thought I recognized him. Yeah, Scrubs was good.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I don't really know much about it, so yeah. What
It's fine.
What do you mean? I wasn't the only one who fucking said that, John Apocalypse. And if I shut the fuck up, the whole show is going to be really boring.
Yeah,
So,
it will be really boring. That's true. I'm glad this got canned. I was actually shocked that it did, because if there's one thing I've learned, especially from the CW, when I guess you could say I was paying attention to the going-ons over there at the time, is they would do whatever it takes to not have something canceled, because like many of that mindset, to them canceling anything is an admission of defeat. They take it very personally when anything is canceled.
Why they never made any money.
They held on to as much of that stuff as they could, from Batwoman to 4 or 5 seasons too many of Supergirl, and of course the super dragged out Flash show, which actually started pretty good. And then they are like, "Oh,
well, Zack Snyder ruined that."
Wait, are you saying the Flash was slow?
Well, no, it slowly started out good. He is right, because the first few seasons weren't bad, and then when Snyder decided they were going to do Flashpoint, they took that storyline away from him. Because if you guys pay attention to the first
2 episodes of the 3rd season, but that was when they started getting, you could see the wokeness was starting to slip in.
Oh yeah,
really starting to emphasize.
Well, yeah, it became the Teen Flash, just like with Teen Arrow.
Barry, we are the Flash. I was just like, we are the Flash.
Not every. I agree with a lot of people in the chat. Not every animation needs a live action. Why? Yeah, just sometimes leave the animation.
Well, I see the humor in
animated shows.
this, right?
The animated shows are good enough on their own, many times.
But when you do this, see, here's the problem, and I guess this is what I mean, where I see where we're all coming from on the Saturday Night Live skit kind of thing. That's the problem. You can't do this and take the original seriously. It's not going to work most of the time. The only exception to this that I can think of was 21 Jump Street. And there was no reason or rhyme that should have worked. It just, they happened to nail the tone specifically because the original show was just that fucking ridiculous. But the melodrama and the way the show was, it took itself so goddamn seriously that the movie, for some reason, that movie was the only way you could make a movie of that now.
Also, right? Charlie's Angels with Cameron Diaz.
Similar tone, though, in a way, right? So Cameron it kind of had that tongue-in-cheek nature to it.
The Charlie's Angels one, I think, would have been a perfect model for this thing, maybe, if they really wanted to go with that.
Right.
But at the same time, it was tongue-in-cheek, but it also took itself seriously at the same time. If you can reach a balance of, wink, wink, we're kind of poking fun, but we're also taking it seriously, if you find that balance, even 21 Jump Street, as silly as it was, there was some kind of case they were on, you know what I mean?
A little bit. But compared to the Charlie's Angels, I agree with you. It's like Charlie's Angels is like the mid-ground. 21 Jump Street is full on satire. We're
right.
Almost
that's full on. That usually
another example
work.
of this is the Dan Aykroyd, Tom Hanks Dragnet.
Yeah.
Another one that kind of leans more into the satire, but it still takes the original thing.
Well, it doesn't disrespect
seriously.
the original.
Exactly.
You have to respect the original material, whether you're going for a
Brady Bunch movie is another great example of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's but of course
Brady Bunch movie. I thought did
especially the second one. That second one takes it so far. The first one's kind of, okay, whatever. But if you watch that second movie, that fucker goes all in. It even makes fun of the fact that Greg, the actor, I can't remember his name, supposedly slept with the chick who played his mom.
Right,
I forgot her.
Florence Henderson.
Florence Henderson, yeah.
Right, and
the one who played his sister too. Yeah.
Maureen McCormick and Florence Henderson.
Yeah. Anyhow, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Brian. You were saying something.
I'm not sure I was now. I can't remember.
Oh, well, the Beverly Hillbillies movie actually kind of took it a little bit more seriously. In fact, that was almost like a complete retelling of the original story, almost the same as the original play that the show was all based on and everything.
Well, I always think that the Addams Family movie
that actually took it even more seriously.
I think it was extremely well done. And
I find the Hillbilly movie a little bit more in that line with the Addams Family one, yeah.
But those are live action remakes of live action.
Right.
You know, I think animated stuff often this drive, and it's worked in the past many times. We have to remake it. Oh, we must make a live action of that now. Not necessarily. Sometimes animation is good enough on its own. It doesn't need a live
There's only a
action
few
remake.
that worked. Yeah, like the Flintstones was good, and that was just a flash in the pan, I think, because you had Steven Spielberg producing, Jim Henson's company doing the effects.
That Elizabeth Taylor's last movie, was she?
I think it is.
Yeah, just the reason that it came up is, not to sidetrack us, but my wife's reading a book about Marilyn Monroe, and it's talking a lot about something's going to being cancelled because Fox needed the money for Cleopatra, which was running so far over budget. We think movies now are made over budget and take too long and they're terrible. Cleopatra was just incredible.
Well, I was skimming through some videos earlier as we were getting ready for the show here, trying to figure out something to talk about, and I happened to stumble upon a video that was talking about Willy Wonka. And with inflation, do you realize that they made that movie for like $20 million?
Oh, I know, and that's same with Cleopatra was over like 30 plus million plus in the day. We're talking like 1963.
That's without inflation, right?
Yeah, without inflation.
Yeah, that was a big, huge disaster. But Willy Wonka, on the other hand, was mid to low budget. And I'm just looking at that and the stuff that they made. Like, look at all the stuff they built for that movie and how they put it all together and the
incredible
practical effects and everything. I mean, I'm sure they're not like, you know, anything you'd really stand there. But look at the sets, like especially that chocolate room or the candy room or whatever the hell you call it, where he sings the Pure Imagination piece. Like just that set alone is huge. It's humongous. Not to mention the factory parts and everything else. Yeah.
Set for Cleopatra, they might as well have just rebuilt Egypt.
Well, I think they did.
It was incredible. It's such
I think they actually did. Yeah.
Fascinating thing to read about it.
Yeah. No, that was one of the falls of Hollywood. And it's funny because that thing I was stumbling upon was just talking about like how I bring up all the time, how all these other companies were getting more involved in movie making. And it's kind of funny because that gets us to one of our stories we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes. But before we do that, we got some super chats. So keep that in mind, though. FKHC 2005 sends in a clobbering time heart. Thank you so much. All the love for our buddy. He will be missed. Yeah. I was just thinking about one of the last conversations I had with him earlier today. Sad. Jen gifted 5 memberships. Thank you for that, Jen. We appreciate the support. SFXF314 Sabertooth Raptor sends in 10. Thank you. It says Sage Gandalf Tom Connor starts streaming precisely when he means to. Saw an AI Terminator ruin vid where Arnold wears a pink tutu. Got Hulk Hogan vibes. Oh boy. I haven't seen this one yet.
Oh boy.
I have seen some of the other ones though with Arnold, but not this one. My favorite one is where he's like every character in Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. Have you guys seen those yet?
No, what?
Yeah, I've seen that.
I gotta see that.
Great.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, every character is Schwarzenegger. Yeah,
it's as good as when he does Hamlet in The Last Action Hero.
Yeah, to be
or not to be, not to be,
not to be. This summer, Hamlet is packing heat. Or whatever it was. I can't remember.
The whole sequence is brilliant.
People just didn't get that movie when it came out. That movie would be a big hit now.
Love it. Love everything about it.
Tornado sends in $10. Thank you for that. Says, what are your thoughts on Jurassic World Rebirth? Hail Midnight's Edge After Dark. Well, I think it's going to do okay at the box office. I don't think it'll do as well as the last one. As far as whether or not I think the movie will be any good, I don't know. I want to wait for a good trailer before I judge.
Are they going to call, if this is a success and they make another one, hell, they'll make another one a success or not, are they going to call it Jurassic World Afterbirth?
Well, and I mean, at this point, there are more movies called Jurassic World than Jurassic Park. And the world element was only slightly part of the last film. And it felt really concentrated still. And here again, we go with, and here's my only problem with this plot, from what I understand. Here we go again with another island that was discovered that has even more vicious.
Yeah, I'm so tired of this. It's like each time they're surprised, they're like, let's go here and see what happens with these dinosaurs. And then they all start killing them. They're like, you can't believe it. The dinosaurs are trying to kill us. Yes, they have for like 20 movies now, you know?
Well, it's the same fucking thing over and over again. It's Lost World. It's like, how many times are we going to revisit this idea?
They're always shocked.
16-bit mascot beat me to it. I was going to say they should make the next one in space.
Oh man!
Oh, and also
Jurassic X.
There's also one shady guy.
Oh, did you see the thing I posted today? That
Jaws
actually,
X?
I'd be more interested in that.
Yeah.
Yo, I actually
In space, no one can hear you scream. Just when you thought it was safe to go back into space.
Did you notice that there's always like one crooked scientist that wants like the DNA to do something?
I know.
Like every movie, like there's
That's
one
my
scientist...
biggest gripe with all of those movies, Price. Have you ever heard me go off on that?
I probably have, but I have the same sentiments. It's like each time they recycle the same stupid thing. They're in a setting where the dinosaurs are now like attacking people. They're really surprised. And then there's always the shady businessman / scientist or a combination between two of those kind of characters.
Okay, well,
that they need to get the DNA because they have some kind of ploy. There's some kind of plan.
They need a Nedry character, yeah. And I've always said Nedry was the worst character in Jurassic Park, and he could have easily been written out and useless. Because he amounts to nothing. Like, nothing he does really makes any difference other than shutting down the fences, which the power could have been blown out by the storm. Because it technically does anyway. So, like, it really is kind of pointless because he tries to escape and gets killed. And nobody, and unless you're talking about the video game, the Barbasol can never has any point later on, ever again. Right? It was just a stupid little plot point they left open just for no good reason. And then the only time the bad guys have ever made sense was in Lost World. Because at that point, that's when it actually makes sense. Going to this, because at that point, you have Jeff Goldblum literally saying, no, I'm not going to this fucking island. I've already seen exactly what Price and I have been saying. I've already seen what happens. And the only reason he goes is because he's forced to go. And part of the plot is that they're stealing the fucking dinosaurs. So you actually have a good reason for the bad guys to be there. You have a good reason for your protagonist to show up. From that point on, you're right, Price. Every time there's a fucking bad guys in these movies, they amount to shit. What's his face? Vincent D'Onofrio in The Lost World. Got eaten at the end. Nothing came of it. Blue shows up in the next two movies for no good fucking reason.
Yeah.
No, despite all that, maybe it's the childhood nostalgia in me. I do enjoy The Lost World. 3.
I love The Lost World for
but
no
I do enjoy The Lost
apparent
World.
reason other than the last 20 minutes or whatever when they're in San Diego.
Oh yeah, that was ridiculous. Even that was ridiculous for me. At
when
10 years old.
When the kid comes in and goes, "Mommy, there's a monster outside of my room," and they go in there and the fucking T-Rex drops the dog fucking house onto the ground because he just ate the dog. I don't think I laughed so hard.
I do enjoy The Lost World. I know it's not perfect, but I do enjoy it. Now 3 came out right when I was hitting teenage years, and I was not wild about 3.
True, 6 does bring up a good point. He does disable the door locks, but they have to reset the system anyway because of the power outage. So you still just could have just... My point is you could have jumped past some of that stuff and you didn't need it. Nedry wasn't necessary. I just don't think he was. I know some people will fight me tooth and nail on that. But for me, the problem I have with him is that he sets up this idea that you need a character like that in every one of the movies going forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a template, Tom. So
yeah,
just the template.
If it's any consolation, I wish that was the brunt of our arguments more often on movies versus what entertainment has become.
That or have it amount to something, right? Like the Vincent D'Onofrio character, like actually have him live and actually pull off the batshit stupid crazy idea they have. Right?
I know. You know what they haven't tried yet? Predator versus dinosaurs. That might work. Next year, you could Jurassic World Predator.
That's kind of a good idea. Better than that Prey movie. It's like if you're going to go back in time, and if the Predator is actually going to go up against something that's worthwhile, yeah, have him go after like T-Rexes and shit and raptors. Yeah. I'm with you on that, Brian.
Well, that could be kind of fun.
Jurassic Predator.
Jurassic World Predator.
I'd look forward to that.
You'd still have to have some hapless... Yeah, me too. You'd have to have some hapless humans in there somewhere, of course.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
It'd be a retarded good time.
Yeah.
I'm down for retarded. I love retarded. I'll say it. I love retarded.
Some never go full retarded.
You can
get a shirt at our store right now that says that. Rolando A. Ramirez sends in 5 and says, the whitewashing line almost set me into rage at work. The balls on those writers to think that was so funny. Line, rest in piss. This show. Yeah, that part was kind of stupid. But yeah,
it shows the intentions of what they were going for. It was like at the peak woke, what's probably one day going to be referred to as the peak woke era, and they tried to unleash this. I don't know why they didn't end up moving forward with it, because it matches the cringe that we would see on the CW, but somehow they didn't do it. I guess it was so bad that even they couldn't release it.
Well, Malachi D. Wildman brings up the true point, and that is Nedry is the best dressed useless character. Well, he dresses like all the Goonies. Didn't you ever notice that?
No.
Yeah.
But then we're not.
He has chunks, wild Hawaiian shirt. He wears the rain slick and a gray members only jacket in the movie. Nobody ever noticed that?
No.
He's dressed as the Goonies.
Tom, we've got a life.
No, it's like a common known thing. Like,
yeah. I think I've heard you mentioning that before. I think.
Yeah.
But you need an antagonist, so there he is.
Yeah, I mean, well, the antagonist is the dinosaur six.
No, they're just they're not. Antagonists are ones that are actively trying to be the bad guys. The dinosaurs are just there.
Well, it's man versus nature. It's not man versus man. See, that's the type of story. And you're mixing in man versus nature.
But, I mean, nature isn't the bad guy. That isn't the good guy.
No,
either.
but man is already the bad guy. That's the point. And the movie's laid out for you by Jeff Goldblum's character. Real simple. Sure, now that you can play God, did you ever stop to think that maybe you shouldn't?
Yeah.
And this thing isn't going to, come back at you and destroy you. Like, not just physically, but in every way, shape, or form. And he says that basically to Hammond on his deathbed in the second film, right? Like, so you want me to go save your fucking legacy? It's like, you bought into this, buddy. Like, yeah, I don't know. I love Malcolm. He's a great character. He's just such a cynical bastard.
Perfectly cast as well.
Oh, God, yes. But anyhow, moving on. Let's get into this news, because we got a few things to discuss, I guess. Shanatsky sends it to and says, why not poachers wanting dinosaur hides? Well, that's kind of what part 2 had. That's what I was getting at. Like, the company was coming in just to take the ship, but you also had the game hunters. And I love that one character. What's his name? The big game hunter who's like, all he wants for his pay is to capture a T-Rex buck.
If they made it now, it would be the big gay hunters, not the big game hunters.
Wah, wah.
That would be the woke version.
The ambiguously gay hunters. They're on the search for Twinkies.
Twinkosaurus.
Twinkosaurus Rex. Is there an air leak in here? All right. Speaking of toys becoming games and all that business, as we were talking about earlier, the game companies and toy companies being involved in movies, we're starting to hear more movement on Monopoly, the movie. And it's funny because the game industry or the toy industry was one of the first industries to start getting into making movies back in the time we were just talking about, along with beverage companies and other things like that. And the reasoning was, and Willy Wonka was a great example of that, because that was General Mills who decided, we want to sell a chocolate bar. And the Whopper company said, well, guess what? We have a perfect vehicle for that. Unfortunately, the chocolate bar failed. The movie didn't. But I guess Mattel was one of those people, along with others in that time period that were producing films and such. But we come back around full circle, because now it seemed like for a while we were going to get a bunch of these movies, a decade ago?
Yeah.
Almost 20 years ago.
I remember the fad.
Yeah, the fad was
supposed to be a fad. Supposed to be a fad.
And luckily it died with Battleship.
Yeah. I remember that. I'm like, bro, I love Battleship, but I don't need that to be a damn movie, man.
Yeah,
really? We're doing board games now? Like, what if you had let's just say maybe like a RPG role playing game?
Did that Magic 8-Ball movie come out? Didn't we get like that or something like that?
Oh, I don't remember.
And technically Ouija was part of this movement too, but see, they already had a Ouija board movie called Witchboard years and years ago. I don't know if you guys remember that one, but
I don't.
Yeah.
But
Uno, the movie. Well, see, that stars Trump and Zelensky. It's like, you don't have the cards. You got to pick 4.
See, I wish they would make a movie on Connect 4. That'd be it. It'd be a half
Oh,
hour
Jesus.
long.
Chutes and Ladders.
I always had really good Connect 4 games.
Chutes and Ladders could be a fun movie. It's all in like this house with like a bunch of trap doors and shit.
Yeah, well, see, that's what I mean. You're having something that's kind of there that could be like an element that could translate into real life. So you can definitely base something. Like I said, certain ones you can pull it off, sure, but not everything needs to be a damn movie. But
Snap the movie.
everything is it's based off a pre-existing
Operation the movie.
Well, you could do.
And how do you end that one? You actually
Is it safe?
I thought Battleship was quite a good fun movie.
I guess that's one of Mikey's.
I like Peterberg.
One of Mikey's favorites too. I guess.
Yeah, Taylor Kitsch. Come on. I'll do everything I can to make Taylor Kitsch a star.
Oh well, yeah.
See, if they made that movie now, it wouldn't have Rihanna in it. It would have Zendaya in it.
Oh,
See, they would recast it with Zendaya.
Oh man, that's what I'm scared of. Yeah, it would be Zendaya.
I would argue that Rihanna looks better than Zendaya.
Oh, she's way better. Oh, absolutely.
Wow,
she was pretty good.
good.
She was pretty good, but they would remake it now with her. They made it now.
I mean, I have my criticism of Rihanna, but I'll keep it to myself. But when it comes to looks, I think that Rihanna looks even now looks better than Zendaya.
Possibly a better actress too.
Is she a survivor?
Is that who sings that song?
Was she Eye of the Tiger?
I don't think that was her.
She sings
Sissy.
Survivor.
Wasn't she one of the I'm a survivor?
Isn't that a Destiny's Child or something?
Yeah, wasn't she one of Destiny's children?
No, she's
No, I
not
don't
one
think
of
so. I
Destiny's
think she was her own thing.
She wasn't?
That's Beyonce, Kelly
Oh, that was
Rowland,
Beyonce.
and
Yeah, it was Beyonce. I get those two mixed
Can't even
up all
remember
the
the
time.
third one, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, they're all the same. Kind of like Christina Aguilera and all them chicks.
I couldn't tell you who sang who.
Skater Boy chick and all them, yeah.
I got flack from all the boomers and at my work because I didn't know that the song that was playing on the PA was Madonna. Like, you don't know who this is? I was like, who is this? Who's
I wouldn't have
Madonna?
known. I mean,
I was like,
apart from
bro,
some of
I'm
the
a
most
caveman.
famous ones.
Like, what? I was like, yeah.
So this show is going to be a reality show. It's not a movie. We're talking. But does that mean they're going to send them to every street in the movie, or
We already have a
in the
reality
game?
competition. It's the government. Seriously.
So what's going on here? So there's been some movement on this. A slew of broadcast networks and streamers are battling it out to pass go on an unscripted TV adaptation of the classic board game Monopoly. So this isn't actually a movie. This is a reality TV show. Now this actually might have some potential. See, now this is where I can see the future of these kind of games translating into shows.
I immediately contradict their statement that it would be unscripted. There's no such thing as an unscripted reality show. They're all carefully plotted and somewhat scripted. But anyway, that's just my thinking.
Because this was the wrong story I didn't mean to bring up. I meant to bring up this other story. That actually has potential and sounds good. Because, you know, Scrabble's had its own game show and a bunch of these other ones in the past. I don't see a problem with that.
Well, they did have the movie about Clue. The Clue movie.
The Clue works, but you got the guys who wrote Dungeons and Dragons now who are going to write the Monopoly movie. As I was saying, there is a movie. So Lionsgate and Hasbro and Barbie outfit Lucky Chap are behind the board game film. So John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein are going from Dungeons and Dragons to Park Avenue, closing a deal to write the movie based on the board game Monopoly. Lionsgate is behind the project and being produced by Barbie outfit Lucky Chap Hasbro Entertainment. Monopoly dates back to 1935 and challenges players to acquire properties and build houses and hotels, and has ended families for years. And good relationships, for that matter.
Isn't that one that people are always like, a woman made it? Do you know the story about that game?
I think so, yeah. I think you're right.
I think that I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize.
If it's not that one, it's one of the other ones, yeah.
Maybe it was Life. Maybe it was the game
It's
of
either
Life.
that or Life, yeah.
Yeah, it was either Life. I think it was Life. There was one.
Monopoly and Life were one of the first two.
Right. I think it was Life that this lady wanted to make like a feminist game. and she was like ahead of her time, and she had this whole concept, and she pitched it to one of those kind of like Milton Bradley or what, I don't know what. She pitched it, he's like, don't you love this feminist game? He's like, no, I don't, it's the worst thing I ever seen. And then like she left the room, and he's like, I have a good idea, why don't we just take all this feminist crap, remove it, and make it like some capitalist I don't know if it was Monopoly or Life, but in any case he released it, and yeah, she, I guess, didn't get credit. So a lot of times you have like activists that are like, why doesn't she get credit for inventing one of the first board games? But yeah, I don't know if it's Monopoly or Life. Don't hold me to it. It's one of those.
I think it's Life, or they would have highlighted that in this article.
See, you could make a movie about that, I think.
That would be funny. Yeah,
Risk?
like
Didn't they make a Risk movie?
Yeah.
I swear they did a Risk movie around the same time as Clue, didn't they? Or am I just imagining that?
I thought there was one too. Seriously, I thought there was one.
Weird, yeah, because it sounds familiar, and yet I can't think of it.
Yeah, because and 6 says it was probably Risk. That's what I said, because I say there was this little craze around the Clue era where they were trying to do this shit. Like, this is nothing new. They've been trying to do this for a while.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead. Sorry, Brian, you were going to say
No,
something.
I was just, I don't think there was a Risk movie.
Maybe I'm wrong, but it's funny because somebody said something about Jack Black will play Mr. Monopoly. Well, they actually had, this is an extension of the version that was coming out before from Tim Story and Kevin Hart, it says here in this article. So this has been in the works for some time. And I remember that this is a movie they've been trying to make. Why? I do not know. This is so stupid. You will never be able to make this into a movie that works. And I know I said that about Legos and a few other things, but at least Lego, I mean, there's still some potential there, and I could see where they came up with it. Hey, Pictionary also had a game show, TV game show. But I just, this is folly. What's next? Rubik's Cube, the movie? Like,
well,
hey, they did do a cartoon of that in the 80s. Yeah. Ruby.
Marbles, the movie.
Marbles, the movie.
They've got balls.
Jax.
Balls of glass. Yeah, bro, that was, yeah. Action comes in.
So let's see what you guys are talking about out there. Action Com says Vince Vaughn's Earth First guy ruined it. Oh, you're talking about, the second one? Yeah, he was all right in it. Action Com says, panel, do you play board games on computers? I have been. I have
occasionally.
I like having the video game versions, especially somebody like me who's isolated all the goddamn time. So it's nice to be able to play a game and not have to worry about having a family to piss off around you, I guess. But
is Connect 4 on the computer?
It might be. I played old versions of that. Like, yeah.
And if so, is there a version where I can play against my friends? Because I would get so fucking hooked.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's 100 different mobile versions of it. DCB Titan sends in Canadian $2. He sends in a toonie. Says, did nobody like Battleship, eh? Well, like I said, Mikey, it's one of his guilty pleasures, I guess. And I'm sure a few people like it. It got a 4K release, so that means at least a few people like it.
Alas, old chap, I will have to drop now, I'm afraid. I'm going to leave you all. And so you can now move on to the intelligent part of the conversation, because I won't be here.
No, there really isn't.
Well, 70s, I'm glad you stayed in here. It's going to be missing you pulling out.
I hung around like a bad smell. So as long as I could. Anyway, thank you everyone in the chat.
Not like a fart, go to hell.
Thank you everybody in the chat for watching. Thank you, my fellow panelists. Thank you, Tom. I will see y'all later, hopefully, on Thursday Night Throwdown on Comics Division. So,
catch you later.
See ya.
See you later.
Bye.
Take care. All right. Well, the other thing I was going to talk about today, this is one more for Nick. The Russo brothers on how they're combating spoilers for Avengers, and we don't want people getting photographs. And also, Robert Downey Jr. is working on the backstory for Doom, so things are heating up with the Doomsday.
That doesn't excite me at all. I mean, it's nice that he takes his acting seriously, but I don't really give a shit about any of that.
Yeah, I don't really either. But the one I really wanted to get into was more the Robert Downey Jr. is really working on background for his character. It's like you already got a background.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. That like I think that the reason they made this article is to make it show like, oh, Robert Downey Jr. isn't just collecting a check. He's super serious about this role, and you should all be super hyped. That's probably the reason this article came out. With that being said, it's like you said, it's like, oh, like, yeah, there is a backstory. You could just go read about it, and then you'll know it. Like, this is just some weird trying to get you excited for something, and it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, so he's so immersed in Doctor Doom and writing backstory and costume ideas, Russo brothers say, ahead of the Avengers Doomsday filming. So that's where the story is coming from. Entertainment Weekly. So yeah, he is so immersed. He is so dialed in. He's writing backstory, costume ideas. We were just on the phone with him this morning before we got here talking about it. He just loves really rich three-dimensional characters. He sees real opportunity here with this character. So yeah.
They're paying him so much, it would only make sense that he'll take it seriously.
Oh, I'll give Downey that. He's not going to phone it in.
Yeah, he wouldn't have phoned it in no matter what.
He's not that type of guy.
No, he wouldn't have phoned it in. He's going to
make sure he gives it 100, whether the script sucks or not. He's going to give it 100. So, no respect to Mr. Downey, RDJ, for that. I have no excitement towards this thing. There's no proper build-up with Dr. Doom. We're getting straight into the thick of it. This is something that should have been like really laid out the way the movies with Thanos, with the Infinity Gems. The stone. Sorry, the comic side of me is talking. And then you had, he made the cameo in the first two Avengers movies, was in the Guardians movies. There was things sprinkled throughout the time. We're just going straight into this. Like, seriously, like, if giving us Thanos was like a romantic night out full with lube, this is the night where we're like, no, fuck this shit. We're going in dry. And Dr. Doom's the type of guy you still need to have a romantic night out with, too. So Dr. Doom lovers matter as well, not just Thanos lovers. I just really made a love allegory out of this. I can't believe I made that make sense. But it's true. We're just going straight into this, skipping all this history of Dr. Doom and just doing this. And to me, Dr. Doom is the villain you bring in my opinion, in the third good Fantastic Four movie. You can maybe hint at him in 1 and 2, bring him in for the third movie, and then after that, have him be in an Avengers movie. So he's got to face the F4 first. And he doesn't exactly lose, but he doesn't exactly win first. But the F4 realized it's going to take more manpower than just the F4. That's where they get Earth's Mightiest Heroes involved, and that's where it becomes the Avengers and the F4 crossing over. And then you can finally have them go up against Dr. Doom, Doom World, and all that jazz. But instead, we're just doing Doom right away. Because, you know what? We can't wait on this because Kang didn't work because we kicked out Jonathan Majors, and we got to have a big villain right here. We just can't fill the gap with another regular movie. We got to get straight into this.
All right, well, let's see what the audience is talking about here. We got Action Comics says Midnight's Edge, Connect 4 Battle Sunday. Tom and Nick, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. That's right. Klekioki says, Price, Nick, thoughts on the first 2 episodes of Daredevil? Yeah, what'd you think about those?
Price, go first.
I thought that there were a few comments that I had, but generally speaking, this is the best thing that has ever been done on Disney Plus. I know that's not a high bar, but at least somebody looked at that Netflix show and tried to continue something of the vibe of it. I think that Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio are still game to play these characters the way they should be played, and they really carry this thing, and they did fine. There were a few red flags. The Vanessa being a girl boss was kind of, and having marriage counseling is kind of annoying, that whole situation. I also thought that I don't think it's a spoiler at this point, but whatever they decided to do with Karen and Foggy, I think that maybe we should have had more time with them before they made some decisions regarding those characters. But all in all, I still enjoyed it. I didn't hate it. And considering that it's like a Disney Plus Kevin Feige crappy thing, this is actually somewhat decent.
Nick?
Okay. I enjoyed the episodes, and I'm not gonna say it's it's better than this. I don't do that. I don't go for the minimal milestone. I'm going for the maximum milestone. Obviously, we're 2 episodes in, and we got 9 coming up, so it's not as good as the Netflix show. But to be fair, there are times where I thought something was fairly good, and then it finishes strong, and I appreciate it more looking back when I see it as a whole picture. It's kind of like when you start like a drawing or painting, you appreciate it once you have the whole pictures. But that's an opinion and a hypothetical for another day. Going off currently these 2 episodes, I really enjoy them. Obviously Matt, Foggy, Karen, Kingpin, right into the roles like a glove. Obviously, there was that one thing that happened 15 minutes of first episode that was like a big holy shit Roni moment. So I'm gonna wait on that moment because there's a lot of justified anger towards that moment, and I get it. That's even Charlie Cox himself has said, "Ooh, the fans are gonna be pissed about this," and he doesn't know himself. But keep in mind, there could be more to that than meets the eye, especially if you know comic books. Now, I was really terrified of what they're going to do with White Tiger. I was like, oh, fuck. This is actually a cool character from the books and an original character at that. And, well, the character's plot, he's part of the more legal side of what's going on Matt Murdock. It's pretty good so far, which I didn't think I would say I liked. And I actually do like the inclusion of Heather Glenn. She's from the Marv Wolfman days of the comics. And, well, let's just put it this way. Anytime Matt Murdock meets a new girl in his life, his girlfriends kind of go the way every girlfriend Paul Kersey has. So if you've seen Death Wish, you know what happens to every single girlfriend of Paul Kersey's. Matt Murdock, I think, is going to have a little bit of a similar fate. The banter between Murdock and Fisk is good. And of course, there seems to be a lot of people that's going on with the stuff with Bullseye. If you know comics, you'll realize that him falling flat on his ass. Well, there's once again clues to what happened season 3, and also there's this thing called long form storytelling. So we shouldn't knock on him because we don't know all the details yet. Because there's a lot of rushed judgment on that. How do you survive bad writing, bro? Did you forget how season 3 ending? Also, dude, we only have 2 episodes out of 9. And I hear Price, you mentioned your whole thing with Vanessa Fisk, and I've heard others say the same thing. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. One, Vanessa is a people person, far more than Wilson ever has been and ever will be. She knows how to play the game. Of course, she's going to be good at doing what Wilson is. Wilson, yeah, he knows how to maintain status quo, but he also kills the shit out of a lot of people. So he ends up losing potential business, customers, whatever you want to call it. Whereas, yes, Vanessa is going to have a bit more of a level-headed approach. So, of course, she's going to have that. I know people are going to look at it from the girl boss angle, and I get why people do. There's a valid reason to see it from that end. But considering what we have off the previous continuity, I'm going off of that because there was no emphasis angle of gender at all in it. It was just making sense in the context of the story. And then there's the whole stuff with the Kingpin, Donald Trump. I'll put it this way. I'm in the line of Gary Nerdrotic out of how Trumpian is it, 1 to 10. If Homelander is a 10, to me, this is like a 1, 1.5 at best. 1.5 at best. So I think the few things that might be there, I think people are kind of seeing ghosts with it.
No, I'll tell you what. Here's the thing with what I think about Wilson Fisk on this show. The character itself is established in a way that all the things that he's doing and saying actually make sense within that character. There were a few lines like over half the people like him now. Like there were a few lines that felt like a wink to Trump.
Know that at the time in 2016 and 2020 because they thought no one liked him. Remember, no one took him seriously in 2016.
Right.
So I guess that line has no correlation.
No, what I'm trying to say is that within this show, you could tell that whoever wrote it inserted a few sentences that gave a little wink that this could be a Trump allegory. But at the same time, with all of that being said, he doesn't do anything, this character, like Wilson Fisk, that's not in line with his character. So even
No,
if
it's
they
all
wanted,
perfectly in
even if
line.
deep in their hearts, behind the scenes, they're like, wow, this guy really reminds us of the Orange Man, it still doesn't affect the show negatively, because Wilson Fisk really, this is in line with his character. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm sure that they thought about it, but it's
Oh,
not
it's
in a way that
possible.
keeps you from enjoying it. And as for Vanessa, I'm at least happy that they brought back the original actress.
Oh, I know, right?
They
And
never,
she killed it. She was
yeah, I
great
mean,
still.
they never explained even. You know that they fired the Asian lady and they never explained it. They hired an Asian woman and said that she would be the new Vanessa Fisk. And this actress put on her Instagram that she was sad to hear about the news because she really had hoped to be included in the show. And nobody said anything. And after about like half a year of filming or whatever it was that they filmed the Asian actress, they're just like, hey, you know who's back? This actress, the original actress. Nobody ever said that the other one was fired. Nobody explained it in any way. Like
Well, we know what happened.
None of these trade.
No, that's Marvel and Disney's fault.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say
Well,
we know
that
what
lady
happened.
should
But
have never taken the role of Fisk. I don't blame her personally for taking work, but she was never
I
meant
don't
to be
blame
part,
her.
so that's Marvel's
I'm
fault.
asking something else. Why are the trades not saying that an Asian woman was fired? They love diversity so
yeah.
much. You know what I mean?
because they're
Not
running
one
interference
article.
for Disney. They barely had to admit what we've been reporting all this time, and that was that they shot a bunch of the show. It was shit. They went back and they redid the show from scratch, and they had the rights to the Netflix show. There was no reason they couldn't do the Netflix show. So they did just that, because the Netflix show, after they bought the rights back from all those, was one of their biggest streaming things on Disney Plus. So it was pretty obvious that they wanted to go and do an actual sequel to that instead of a new rebranding of it. Because don't ever forget that this was supposed to be like Kevin Feige's vision of what Daredevil was, and the only
it was supposed to be
vision,
very
yeah.
influenced by the Mark Waid, Chris Samnee run that started in 2011, which obviously the only element that's really remaining from that is the addition of Kirsten McDuffie. She's a character. Now, I will say the actress who plays her is a lot better of a character than she was in the Waid run. Doesn't make her good or great. She's a lot better. Now, I did like Matt and Heather Glenn. I did like their relationship. I did like that angle, even though I'm really concerned for her character because I know Matt Murdock's history. Once again, very much like Paul Kersey. I feel like I hope they keep that going until they decide, well, I think the engine's run out of steam. I did enjoy the action. Obviously, the action's not match the levels of the Netflix show, but for what it is, it's good. It is cool to see Daredevil make use of the Billy Club. Cool to see him leap off of buildings, jumping off them. Stuff that now we did not really see much of in the Netflix show is doing the high flying stuff. So it was cool to see that. I was happy with that. I'm gonna go with a overall. I'm probably gonna give it like a 7.5 rating as far as the show goes. If anyone else are concerned about the religious themes, it's there. It is there. It's not dominant, but it's not non-existent either. If I had to go through a 1 out of 10 scale, how much is there? I'd say 4, 5. And I see Klikioki said, I heard the CG is horrible. Yeah, the CG is not good. And here's my way about the CG. 1, it's TV budget, never gonna match movie budget. 2, I've always been consistent in saying that I can forgive something being entertaining if the CG is bad because you got me immersed in the story. And well, the story has me my attention. So around 7.5. I hear it's supposed to finish strong. Apparently, the show is really supposed to build over time, according to, let's just say, people in our sphere. And I hope that that's true. I want this to be good, and I will. I said, was it Tuesday night would be the litmus test to decide if I'll continue to do review on it. Well, I'm going to review the rest of the episodes every Wednesday night, and I'll have rotating guests for each time with a different panelist or two. And Price, if you want to come on for one of those episodes, you know you always have a seat at the table.
I will surely be on for at least one of them. But what was and we're even gonna possibly do something interesting next week, by the way.
Ooh, yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe I'll let Tom announce it if he wants. I don't know.
Well, we're supposed to do some big crossover event. Yeah.
That's true. Kind
We
of like
transition together 3 times,
like the
Right.
CW used to do.
Right, the Arrowverse, like the Arrowverse, but with Midnight's Edge after
If
dark.
Iris West said we are the Flash, now we are the CW.
So basically, I'm like Arrow, and then Nick would be like the Flash, and then you'd be like the We're Tomorrow.
Katie Lutz.
No, what was the name of the show where they all got together on?
Legends of Tomorrow. That's the stinky one. But fine,
I'm
whatever.
kidding.
I'll be DC Legends of Tomorrow.
You could be Superman and Lois, then I don't care. I don't give a
All
shit.
right, I'll Superman and Lois. At least I'm not Supergirl.
I almost was gonna make you Supergirl, but yeah. So yeah, next Tuesday, right, guys? That's the day we're doing it.
Yep,
yes, Tuesday, March 11th. There's a big crossover
We're gonna
event.
crank it up.
Yeah,
it's gonna go to 11.
I think it's go to 11.
I can't wait. It's gonna start off on MEAD, Midnight's Edge After Dark, and then Toxic Tuesday, and then the night on my channel, and then the Night Owl and Price of Reason channel. All 3 of us will be on all 3 shows all night long. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna like a gallon of Red Bull for that.
This is brand new, never been played. Even got Tiger still on it. No, don't touch it. Can't be touched. It can never be played.
I see. I want to address 11 Alpha's comment about Little Platoon's critical of the True Religion. The show is more, no pun intended, faithful of the religious aspect of Matt. But here's the thing that you still got to consider with the show. We're 2 episodes in. We don't know if Matt is in a position where maybe, let's just say he fell out of faith and he's finding his way back. The show,
I've heard a couple different sides of the religious aspect. I've heard some people say
non-existent. It's once again, I do say it's probably around a 4.5 of it being there, and it's not denying it. It's not like there's one image where you saw him jumping around, and then where he does a stop, they have like an iconography type of shot. It's him, in front of like a church, and obviously there's one time he stops to listen to a bunch of prayers going on. So yeah, it is not as much there, but it's clear that there is a leaning there. We just don't know.
They knew they couldn't. They knew they couldn't get rid of it altogether. So there's at least a little thing that he's sort of hearing voices in a church. Yes. But I have a feeling that that's how they're going to solve whatever they consider to be a problem. That they'll just try to minimize whatever they can. Whereas in the original, the Netflix show, you had the father, you had him going to church, and like it was a much bigger thing.
But we also had the full deal with that show. That's a thing. We still are only on 2 episodes, so that's
we'll see. I mean,
to be as fair to this as possible.
It's not a disaster until now, but I can't say for sure how it's going to be.
We got to keep in mind too, because what if he did fall? Because right now the gap on when season 3 took place to where this show is not really clear. We do know that the first 15-20 minutes to the rest of the first episode to the second, there's a year gap, but we don't know where season 3 to where this show is. We don't know how long that gap has been. That it's still not made clear yet. And to be fair, that could be something that could be told throughout time. I hope we get to that point. I'd like to know. I really would like to know.
Yeah, I still haven't finished the original run, so maybe I should.
It's so weird, Tom. You watch like so many things, and like one thing that's actually good you didn't finish watching. I'm kind of disappointed.
I fell out during the Elektra part, and I didn't like.
It wasn't bad enough to
Defenders.
fall out. You've watched shit in your life.
At that time, it was. You got to understand. This was back when Marvel was still fucking good.
You're a greedy man. That's all I
was spoiled. I was spoiled.
Yes.
I was spoiled.
Fine,
and I totally admit that, but
Storm King is asking if there are spoilers for DD. I myself haven't spoiled anything. I mean, should we go into spoilers? Everything I gave was just a really elaborate non-spoiler comment that just took several minutes to address. I mean, should we go into spoilers just for the sake of conversations? I mean, chat wants me to do it. I could go on. I could talk about Daredevil all day. Daredevil's kind of part of my DNA. So you all decide. Otherwise, if Tom's got something else, oh, Clicky is like, no, please no. Okay, I will
Not really.
I will shut my face.
No, you're fine. I didn't watch the show. I don't really have anything to add or subtract.
No,
so I
it's
just know
okay.
the behind the scenes goings on, and that's about it. Tornadoes asked with another 10. Thank you for that. If you could pick only one, what would be your favorite 80s movie? Saying, oh my God. You asked an impossible question to answer.
I think I can answer it. If it's 80s, I think I'm going with Back to the Future.
I don't know.
Gremlins.
Nah, for me, Gremlins.
For me, Gremlins.
Gremlins is a movie that I like, but I can't put it in the same place as like Back to the Future. Back to the Future really, as a kid, I don't know, that just did like everything that I wanted to see in a movie was in that movie. I will say that also
it's not up for debate. It's what we pick.
Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, I would say, and maybe Return of the Jedi. These are strong contenders. But overall, for me, I can't speak for others. For me, it would be Back to the Future. I respect your selection of Gremlins, but I will say that it rather surprises me. It may have a personal value to you, and it's a good movie that I enjoyed, but it doesn't. Because
my top two other favorite films come out in 1975 and 1990. So I guess my next in line would be probably, God, I don't know, as a personal favorite, like Gremlins. But I mean, I'm not going to argue with you as far as like pound for pound, the better film as far as cinema goes is Back to the Future. But for me, Gremlins is just
that's fair. Listen, I really like Gremlins. Don't get me wrong. I had a video cassette of that. I've seen that movie like 100 times. I know every like beat, everything that happens in it, and I really like it. It's not like I'm like, oh, how dare you say Gremlins? I'm just saying that like if I look at a movie like Back to the Future, the screenplay, the whole setup there, just everything that happens in that movie is just amazing.
The
I don't know.
The answer is supposed to be Raging Bull, but
I don't know, man.
Nick,
you know
why? What is your favorite 80s movie and why is it heavy metal?
It's actually not. I love heavy metal, though. I love heavy metal. It's fantastic. I don't know. I could never answer this question because it changes all the fucking time. What you ask me tomorrow?
My other answer would be RoboCop. I don't know if that helps you.
One day I might say RoboCop. Another I might say
RoboCop is great.
Back to the Future. Another time I might say Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, that's another one that's up there for me too. Yeah,
tough question.
Cobra is one of my favorites of the 80s. The Karate Kid, I love.
I was gonna say you almost need 5 out of the 80s.
Right,
there's
you
so
need
many
5.
great films, and even 84 alone.
I need like 20. I actually need like 20. There's so many good movies in the 80s. We were spoiled. We were talking about you being spoiled with Netflix.
Oh God.
We were spoiled in the 80s. I thought that my whole life I would have fun going to the movies like I did in the 80s. There were just so many good movies.
It was an embarrassment of riches as far as
right. It's just like, and the thing is that, yeah, some movies you look at them today and you can say they're dated here, they're dated there, but this ambition of just creating things just out of left field that were interesting and intriguing and original. And that was the atmosphere there. Now that you keep seeing 7 sequels all the time. Yeah, there was like Rocky 5 or Rocky 4, whatever it is. But I'm saying that most of the movies, they wanted to create something new and interesting, maybe something that you hadn't quite seen, something like it. And they really work towards that.
Even some of the worst shit in the 80s is better than any of the best shit now.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
Dude.
Like I just watched A Complete Unknown last night. Great film. One of the best films of last year.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even hold a fucking candle to La Bamba.
You know why? And I said this in my review. I don't know if you ever watched my review. The thing is that there's 2 problems with the movie. One, they make it seem like he's so mysterious, Bob Dylan. But you know what? That's not what I needed from the movie. I wanted to see some background as how he got to New York, what happened before, and why his success means anything to him. And once you didn't have that, you don't give a shit what happens to the character. It's like, I don't care what happens. He is doing it. He isn't doing it. It's like, oh, he's really weird and mysterious. That doesn't cut it for me.
Well, do you know what it's based on? And this is, and again, I'm not defending how you feel about it so much as
it's probably based on the fact that he doesn't like it when people talk about his past. So that's why you got this kind of sanitized version where you don't get anything from it.
You get part of that. I mean, his background is pretty well known. It's just that this movie takes place in a specific time period when Bob and the whole movie's about him reinventing himself every
the
time.
electrical thing and how he annoyed those folks.
And it's actually based on the book. I believe it's called When Dylan Went Electric or whatever. So it's all based on, and I get where you're coming from. And I had to come to terms with that too, because I would have much liked a much broader biopic of him.
That's what I wanted. I wanted a broad biopic. Yeah, okay.
For what it is, for the time period, for what it's explaining and telling us, there's only one or two things I didn't really like about the movie, and that was they kind of skewed away. Like, actually, it's funny how non-political the fucking movie is, considering when it was made and how it's come out. Because you could really lean into the woke bullshit, especially with Pete Seeger in this movie, and they didn't. And the one thing is they have their friendship coming to an end over the whole him going electric deal, when that was part of their problem. But the other biggest part of their problem was Dylan just wasn't as into the hardcore politics as Seeger was. And he couldn't keep doing that shit so much. Like, he liked to be political, and same thing with Joan Baez. He was not as social justice, and he's even said it in a quote once before. He sold his soul to become a rock musician, and that's what this movie is about. But it shows that is it necessarily a bad thing that Bob Dylan did that? Was he shitting all over those people that he, built himself upon, or did he just become what his inevitable butterfly was supposed to be? I think it's the latter.
Another issue is that with all due respect, if you look at old footage of like Bob Dylan and just his overall vibe, he's a lot more of like he has a lot more of an edge. Timothy Chalamet seems a bit vanilla for me as a Bob Dylan. His performance when he sings is not bad, and overall it's an okay performance, but I never quite buy him as Dylan, and that's my other problem.
Actually, I think he grabs it pretty well, but Dylan's always been one of those guys where people put more onto him than he really is, and that's what I love about. There's this interview about where they try to ask him about all the meanings of his songs. He's like, "Well, what do they mean to you?" He's I didn't really. He's like, most of those songs didn't come from any specific place. They were just words that sounded good together.
Sometimes you look in a guy's eyes and you could tell a certain edge or depth about him. And I feel like Timothy Chalamet does not have that depth.
And that's what I was trying to say is Dylan's the same way. He was projecting that more than he really was. And I think that was kind of said with that scene between him and Johnny Cash when Johnny is all drunk. Right? Because if you watch, then he becomes Johnny Cash. Did you not notice like that? That's
I guess I understand what
the whole point of the movie is. Bob Dylan doesn't exist. Robert Zimmerman doesn't exist, I should say. Bob Dylan is whatever the fuck he presents it as. And as soon as people try to tell him what he is, he gives them the 180. And actually, I know maybe we saw it a different way, because I mean, I've been loving Dylan since way back when, and I agree most people that he's not the best musician, but he's one of the greatest songwriters of all time.
He's a great songwriter, and I'm a musician too, and I respect Bob Dylan and his work, and I actually have listened. There's albums.
I used to get make fun of for listening to him in high school and shit.
No, so, I actually, in my high school and my 20s and stuff like that, I would spend time. I've heard a good amount of his albums, and a good amount of times I had a few of them myself. So it's not that I just only know his like one hit or something. And it's not that I don't like him. I'm just saying that for me, I wanted a full biopic and not this, going electric with Pete Seeger. And two, I thought Timothy Chalamet didn't convince me. Those were the two things I walked away from the movie. I by the way, my review wasn't bad. If you look at my review, I didn't say it's a shitty movie. I just said that, it could have been better than it was. That's all I said.
Well, and I see where you're coming, because you could have done the typical, like, go through the years, because there is a bunch of his hits are not even touched upon, right? Like, and that's normally what these, like the Queen biopic is a great example of this, where they basically go, hey, you remember Queen? Well, did you forget that they had this many fucking hits? Right? Like, that's kind of what that movie is. And this movie could have done that for Bob. Right? It could have went through and go, guess what? You may not think he can sing, but you don't realize he wrote this song, he wrote this song, he wrote that song, he wrote this song, he wrote that song, he wrote that song, and motherfucker wrote more songs than probably anybody else in the 20th century that have produced like hits for other people and himself. Right? Like, I don't even know if there's anybody you could argue that has written more songs than him that have become, staples. Right? So, I mean, even if you just count like, Knocking on Heaven's Door and Blowing in the Wind, right? Like, just those two songs alone, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, in the movie itself, I take back something I said the other day, and I don't really do, and I rarely do this, but I do when I'm wrong, and I say it. Complete Unknown is a perfect name for this movie because now I understand what they're doing with it. Because when I was going into it, the trailers, and I agree with you, the trailers kind of sold it as the typical biopic. We're going to get to go hear the greatest hits of Bob Dylan while we see this guy who looks and sounds kind of like him, right? Especially at that age.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you, though. There is parts of this where Bob himself does not feel like a real character, but I feel like that's the point of the film, is he is an enigma. He is just, creating himself. And that's, no, I don't see it as a cop-out. I see it as, that's the whole circus background, right? Like, because even Joan calls him out on his bullshit. But if you realize it, like, no, that's what he's saying, is his life is a fucking circus, and it's all a show. Does that make sense? Does that
I understand what they were trying to do. I understand what you're saying, and I still didn't like it. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I gave it like, I think 74 or something like that. I think that's what I gave the movie, and 74 out of 100 is, I think, what it deserves. When it could have been maybe like an 85 out of 100 had they bothered to make something that you connect with a character a bit more. Him saying, "Oh, he's so mysterious, he's a complete unknown," that's a cop-out to me. It's fine if he did it. It just doesn't work on me.
I'm not saying that he's so much mysterious. It's that he keeps reinventing himself as soon as somebody thinks they've figured him out. And letting you know the actual backstory would kind of go against that, right? Like let me explain it to you this way. It's kind of like, do we really need a backstory for Michael Myers? That's kind of where the same thing here is. No, because going forward, it doesn't matter where he came from.
Michael Myers is just a fictional character. Bob Dylan.
I get it, but I'm using it. Well, so to him, Bob Dylan is a fictional
no emotional
character.
weight when you watch the movie when he succeeds, because I don't have anything to connect to. It's just like, oh, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing that.
That's fair. I mean, you could have showed the other side of it too, where like the Andy Kaufman movie, where you see both sides of it.
Yeah,
because that's kind of what this is. I agree with you in that respect. I'll give you that. Because this movie is basically like doing an Andy Kaufman movie without ever showing you what Andy had up his sleeve, right? Like that's kind of what this movie is. It's always just seeing it from that surface level. You're never going to get that out of the movie. And I don't think that, because the movie is everybody else reacting to Bob, right? Like that's kind of what the movie is, if that makes sense. And I get where you're coming from, but to me, it's built that way on purpose. So I understand your gripes and I understand your problems with it. And it may have been a little bit easier to understand that for the, for the whole point of the theme of the film. But at the end of the day, I'm fine with it. You weren't. So I mean, you give it a moderate.
When I watch a movie, I have a lot of respect for Dylan, and I'm actually familiar above average. I mean, if I compare myself to some average people, I think that my knowledge of him is pretty decent, and I wanted to see more than I got from this movie. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It just felt like a missed opportunity or something of a disappointment, because I thought it could have been a better movie. But I think like a 74, I think I gave it.
I mean, you get all that kind of stuff you're talking about from like Pete and Guthrie and all the other people that are in the film, because the one scene I think that really explains what the movie is, at least from Dylan's point of view, is after he gets punched by that one dude in the bar and he goes to his ex's house, who's the one character they change her name, who's based on what's her face.
Right. I forgot the real name, but yeah, they changed her name.
Yeah. And he's like, you know what upsets it? He goes, what upsets me most, and I'm paraphrasing the exact quote, but he's like, when they ask me where these songs come from, they're not asking me where they really came from. They're asking me why didn't they come to them. See, and I think that's kind of the whole point of the film, is that it's everybody else's reaction to Bob. It's everybody else around his world.
I completely understand what they were going for.
Yeah.
Sometimes an idea on paper sounds fantastic.
Because you get all the emotions from his ex-girlfriend and Joan and his friends and
still doesn't work for me.
I get what you're saying, because he's treated like this mythological creature in the film. You're 100% right.
I will say this, that acting-wise, the MVP of the movie was Edward Norton. I think as Seeger, I think Edward Norton, any scene he was in, you could tell he's the best actor in this movie, in my opinion, at least. He dominated, as opposed to like Timothée Chalamet, that doesn't have the ability, in my opinion, to do it. Edward Norton, there were scenes that he just kind of raises an eyebrow while like Bob Dylan character is talking, and you automatically know what the character is thinking. He really, I thought, gave a really good performance. I'll even say that the Joan Baez chick, that she's also from Top Gun Maverick, I thought she was pretty darn good as well.
I was surprised they allowed her to come off as such a bitch, considering I think she signed off on this movie too. I was actually surprised by that. I mean, she doesn't come off as a total bitch.
No, but
but she does come off as a bit of a bitch in the movie. And she does kind of use Bob. I mean, it's pretty obvious. And it's like, oh, she signed off on that? All right. But no, I mean, again, you're totally right. And I get where you're coming from on some of those things where it could have been. But again, and this is where I'm going to argue that point is you could do that. But I think that that's where one of the pluses of the film in my eyes is because it doesn't fall into the same old tropes as every other biopic does. Like, we don't have to see he came up from hard upbringing in Minnesota, worked in the mills and did all this shit. And, you know, we don't need to see all that. And somebody telling him, you're never going to amount to anything, you know, because Dewey Cox already made fun of all that shit. Right? We don't need to see that same fucking thing play out again and again. We got it again in fucking Elton John and Queen's biopic. Right? So like,
no, but you know what? You know why this one could have been interesting? Because basically, like, you see him have some life which like is very different than anything he did later, and he comes to New York and like just deletes it. He reinvents himself, and we see this reinvention and him now being a completely different person. That's kind of interesting, and I feel like there was something to show here that you couldn't show in a Dewey Cox or whatever we were laughing at. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you're kind of and I get where you're coming from, and that's fair. And you're somebody who has to kind of know musical history to get, because I think what he's in that scene where he meets him in the hospital and he's talking to him about the music that he grew up on, right? I think you're kind of getting the idea of his background. He had this, you know, Midwestern Minnesota upbringing, blue collar, pretty basic. I mean, did we really need to hear his dad say he wasn't going to amount to anything or anything like that? No. Do we need to see some created drama that didn't actually exist there for no good reason? No.
No, I mean, we didn't need to do that, but it felt like his parents really didn't understand, like they thought it wasn't a good profession. At least show something of how he was, and he had bands, and then before that he was in college in a band. Like, he had other stuff going on before we just see him in this movie. I would have liked to have seen more of that personally. I don't know, but you know,
I get what you're saying, but I think that would have worked against the movie's point is my argument. But yeah,
maybe it would have worked against the movie's point, but I don't think it would have worked against the movie. I think that on paper, as I said, the idea of like, I can see James Mangold sitting there and he's like, what if it's like he's a mystery and just all the other characters react and we don't really know what makes him tick, and that's what's so great, and he's a complete unknown. And all those executives clapped and they all said this is the best thing we ever heard, and they sniffed each other's farts together. But at the end, I'm sitting in a movie theater and I have to enjoy it, and it's one of those ideas for me that probably sounded cool on paper, but once you got to doing it, something is missing from the movie. And you were saying La Bamba had heart, and this movie doesn't quite have heart, and that's the difference.
Well, and the big thing is that La Bamba is also a story more about the family than it is about Richie directly. See, that's the other thing,
you know what? It's all possible. All I know is that this movie lacked heart. There was something too just by the numbers about it. Great performances. You know, it was done well with the music, the musical performances and the regular performances. There were a lot of good things about it, but yet somehow it doesn't have that additional ingredient that makes it like a great movie or even a very good one.
I mean, really, I think it's more so that he just had a very boring upbringing. Like, like there was no huge controversies in his background, really. I mean, the most was his dad got sick when he was young. But I, you know, looking over and skimming through here, things like, I'm like trying to think of things like that you would really need to get into. Cause like, I think that's the whole point is he was so much of a blank slate that, and it's kind of what the movie also shows too, is that he soaks up everything. Right. Like, so it started with just like things like that he heard on the Grand Ole Opry and Hank Williams and all that stuff like we were just talking about, and of course Pete Seeger and all those guys in the whole folk movement. But then as he started listening more to like Little Richard and everything else and the blues and everything else, he started changing his style. And then, you know, and I get it. I get what you're saying. It's kind of more about a bit more about the music this time out, I guess is a better way to put it. But look, you feel the way you feel about it. I thought it was really great. I wouldn't say it's the best movie of this last year, but it's definitely in the top 5, if not my second or third favorite movie of the last year. Probably in third or so, but yeah.
Hey, everybody likes whatever they like. We also didn't agree about the 80s movies. I mean, we can't always agree on everything.
No. But Nick's been quiet here,
echo chamber here.
We're gonna move on from that, but we're gonna price the table once again because he saw this Mickey 17 movie. Everybody keeps asking about. I know jack shit all about this movie, other than it's from the guy who made Parasite or something like that, and I hate that Parasite movie because it beat Once
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I feel the same way. And you know why it pisses me off that it won? This is the truth, and people can say whatever they want. When that movie won, I had one major issue, and it's a foreign movie. Like, there is a category called foreign movie, which means it's not in English, it's in some other country was made. That's where it runs for the awards. No, they
That's
wanted
exactly
it to
how
also
I feel too.
run
Yep.
with the foreign one, but also like versus Tarantino, so they can tell Tarantino that this, Korean guy won. And people were like, why are you saying that? He's such a talented Korean person. It's like very nice that he's a talented Korean person. It was a foreign movie. It wasn't. It shouldn't have been in that category, in my opinion, unless or don't make 7 categories. Unless the Oscars are just like, we're international, we have one category, and fuck you. If that's their policy. But if their policy is that they have a special one for non-English movies, and then they wanted this one to go into here because at the time they had whatever political peddling agenda thing that they wanted to do, I just don't like that shit. So unfortunately, I'm not saying that Jong Boon-ho or whatever his name is, I have nothing against the guy, but somehow, like, the whole thing annoyed me. And when it comes to this movie,
that's exactly my point too, and I agree with you. Just real quick before you say it, because like at the end of the day, to me, it's always been American films, or at least North American films, meaning stuff made in America and Canada, English speaking native films are what should be up for the Best Picture award, not anything otherwise. If it's anything outside of the U.S., it should be for the foreign category, because most countries have their own Academy Awards. But anyway, continue now, Price.
No, and all I'm saying is, if the rules of the Oscar were that they have one category and all the world competes over that category, I would say fine. But they have a category that's specifically for non-English movies, and instead of putting that movie there, they're like, oh, who's going to win, Tarantino or this Korean person? And then they're like, well, it has to be the Korean person, let's let him win. And that for me was weird. You know what I mean? Like, what? It's nothing personal, but it's like, go by the rules of your own stupid fucking award ceremony, which is shitty to begin with. Sorry. In any case,
anyway, Mickey 17.
Mickey
yes.
17.
So what is this all about?
I'd already forgotten about that Oscar thing, and now you reminded me.
I missed the first 16, so you're gonna have to fill me in here.
So okay, so I won't do a heavy spoiler. Not that it doesn't even matter. This is a movie about a guy that basically, in order to avoid some kind of issue that he has on Earth, he thinks it's convenient to join some kind of special program where they're sending him into space, and he's going to end up on some colony or something like that. And one of the things that they have, the reason that they recruit him is he's basically like, quote unquote, an expendable, meaning they can keep killing him and bringing him back to life. And the way they do it is, once his body is dead, they have his consciousness uploaded into like kind of like a hard drive, and they can continue to just duplicate him over and over and over again. And then, as you see, I'm not spoiling anything here, because if you watch like the most basic trailer of this, you'll see that like one day something sort of goes wrong and there's actually multiple him. And then once there's multiple him, the question is, what happens then? In addition, on that colony, there's a lot of things that are happening when it comes to how the people are treated, and certain, a certain threat that exists there. And all of it sort of comes together to some big finale, if you may, and some kind of resolution. If you ask me what I think that the movie doesn't quite work for me. It's not the worst. It's like, I could tell that there's a director here who's not a bum, and it's competently directed, and there's some ideas here that I thought, okay, I kind of like this idea, I kind of like that idea, or this is a bit stylish and I don't hate it. But at the same time, when I just look at everything together, the screenplay feels like it really wants to, like, it doesn't feel like it flows. It feels like things are very forced, so that this can happen, and then that can happen, and this can happen, and that can happen. But while it's happening, I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is kind of dumb. And I think that's the feeling that the movie left me with. And not to mention that I also think that it doesn't have one cast member that I absolutely adore. You know what I mean? It doesn't have, like, Robert Pattinson for me is not like a carrier of movies. He's like all right, I guess, but he's not the best actor. And Mark Ruffalo as a villain is like the worst villain I've ever seen. I've always suspected that Mark Ruffalo is a pretty poor actor. And if you ever were wondering if that's true, if you hesitated and thought maybe he's a poor actor, watch this movie, watch his performance as the villain, and I think you'll walk out and say, okay, confirmed, he's not a very good actor. And he's kind of an idiot in real life, but that's just my personal opinion.
All right. Well, that was a pretty concise and direct review of Mickey 17.
Hopefully, yeah. And I didn't do even real spoilers. I gave like enough to, I gave like enough to give people the feeling if they like to see it or not. Is it a comedy? I don't know. Maybe there's parts that are supposed to be quirky. Maybe you're supposed to find them amusing. I didn't laugh even once. So if it was a comedy, that's news to me. Like, I found nothing funny. Also, it's like he has this relationship with that Naomi Aki actress. She's a good character actress, but like, man, I'm going to choose my words carefully here. She's a good actress. I have nothing against her, but I really want to start seeing like, I don't know. I'm gonna get in trouble. Is it bad if I say that I want to see hotter women in movies?
Who cares if you get in trouble?
You
If
pay
feel
for
how
it.
you feel, man. You're the paying customer. You should be able.
Yeah,
to feel
and I also like
how you feel about it.
I don't rate Robert Pattinson very much. So like he's annoying, and like she's a good actress. She's a good character actress. Like Toni Collette is a good character actress. Again, these aren't names that I go out of my way. I'm like, oh, it's like there's a Toni Collette movie. I have to go see it. She's a fine character actress, I guess. Mark Ruffalo is like the opposite. If he's in a movie, I usually like it loses points just for having him in it. And they gave him a role that he plays this villain. Very poor. And
Why do I feel like Ruffalo smells like garbage, goat shit, and patchouli?
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm trying
just
to think,
for some reason.
I believe you, and they gave him like weird prosthetics to make him look like more. If you're a real villain and a good character actor, you don't need all that weird shit that they put him. I don't know what they did with him. That's going to be the weak point of the movie for me. I'm trying to think if there's anything good. Oh, there's one actor that I liked, Stephen Yeun, who played in Walking Dead as Glenn. I do like that actor. He's also the actor you see him like the least in the movie. And like the few times that like I see him, I'm like, oh, I like this guy. And then he disappears, and I'm left with like Pattinson and that girl from Rise of Skywalker.
So yeah, according to this poster, at least the way this looks, it looks like it's supposed to be kind of a tongue-in-cheek comedy-ish.
I don't know if it was supposed to be comedy. It's not funny enough. It's supposed to be cool science fiction. It's not cool enough. It's supposed to be suspenseful. It's not suspenseful enough.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's worth going out to see then, at least from your account. So yeah, let us know what you thought of the film in the comments below, if you get a chance to see it. And yeah, so thank you, Price, for giving us your 411.
I did.
Mickey 17, Scarfy the Strange. There's a new name. Welcome. Sends in $2. Says Crossfire would be a kick-ass action blockbuster. Yeah, I could see that. I remember that. You guys remember that Crossfire board game? With where you're flinging the like jagged looking pieces across at each other?
Did not play it.
You never played that as a kid?
Sadly, did not. I knew of it, but that's the extent.
Yeah, I was gonna say you had to have seen the commercials. They were on like all the cartoons.
Oh
and shit.
yeah.
Crossfire. The extreme. Yeah. Sabretooth Raptors in the house and sends in 5, says the Battleship concept movie was based on the board game, would be best done in a period piece, World War I, World War II to Vietnam. Yeah, for some reason they went with aliens. So yeah. Yeah, we're gonna be checking out here soon. I see what you guys are talking in the background. We got some super chats to get through, and then we'll be heading out here. 2 Penny Puppet sends in 5, says, I just watched SpaceX catch another heavy rocket on my second screen. Another successful launch that's never going to get old. Yeah. Jason Webster said, oh, speaking of that, did you hear like there was some astronaut that was like in need of assistance and Elon was offering assistance and Biden turned them down and made them wait till the NASA could get out there again or some shit like that?
Not surprised at all.
Yeah, I saw something like that. That Joe Biden didn't want to. That's so stupid. But yeah, I totally believe that happened. By the way,
I want to see a movie about that now. Jason Webster sends in 10 Australia and says Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981 is the greatest homage to action adventure serials of the 1930s and 40s. I agree. Should have won Best Picture at the 54th Annual Awards over Chariots of Fire. You know, that's funny. There's almost a show in that. And I've thought of trying to figure out a way to do this because it's going to be such a scatterbrained show. But like going through the years, and you'd almost have to go every year per movie per show, kind of like with our tier list shows. where basically like go through the movies that were nominated and what won. Maybe you can knock out a few years of show, and decide if the movie that won was actually worthy of it. Because look at this, like this is a great example. Like who still talks about Chariots of Fire outside of the theme song?
The only thing that really lasted was the theme song, and even I mean, honestly,
soundtrack.
I was very young when I watched that movie. I thought it was a snooze. I don't know if today I'd watch it and think anything else.
I think we're so far removed from it that when you see those satirical bits in like cartoons and shows and movies now, people probably just associate them with another satirical bit or movie that they saw with that same exact thing with the Chariots of Fire theme. They probably don't even know where it originated from anymore. That's what I'm thinking. Because like, I bet you ask any kid, like, where did that start from? And they'd have a different answer, each one of them. Because they would never know.
Sometimes they don't even nominate like good movies. They're just like, they'll nominate some crappy movies, gives the crappiest one an award. But you know what? As bad as they used to be, they've somehow gotten even worse. And what happened with Anora, I just want to say quickly, I was reading this article that basically the production budget for that movie was $6 million. They had a different marketing budget, whatever that was. And then they had a special budget to lobby for the Oscars. And the budget for the Oscars was $18 million, meaning they 3 times what the movie is worth to make it. That's the amount of money they spent campaigning so that this would be like a best movie.
You can blame for that?
Harvey Weinstein. He started that shit. I call it
English Patient Zero. Yep.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess he started it. I will say, though, that at least I know this is going to be a controversial take. I know on a personal level he was not a good person, but he knew how to make movies. He did know how to make movies better than a lot of the people that are making them now. As much as I understand that that's not a popular thing to say.
I'd say it's more he knew how to sell them and buy up the Oscars, but yeah.
Maybe, but you know what? He picked movies that were better. He gambled on people like Tarantino. He had things going on that he wasn't completely like clueless. He was
a bit of a visionary. He had a bit of a Robert Evans streak to him in that sense, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he wasn't clueless when it came to like, picking winners, not just to make them winners, but he also knew what to pick. Whereas today they're just using his business model of like lobbying for the award, but they're just lobbying with a bunch of shit. And like, I've said this before. I really believe that Amelia Perez, or as I'd like to call it, Emilio Perez, was probably supposed to, get a bunch of awards. But once their virtue signal, like that they put on a pedestal, it turned out that like that person was saying crazy stuff. They couldn't back that one anymore, so they had to find like a quick alternative. And this kind of thing with the sex workers, apparently with those $18 million, they did screenings, invited sex workers. And then, like, probably also people from the academy or whatever to see how the sex workers are reacting and how they're helping sex workers. And they're so inspiring and all this other shit. And at the end, somehow, once there was a vacuum after that whole Emilio Perez scandal, this just became the default. But
which is funny because it's almost like past Hollywood in a way, because I thought the default would be Wicked. It's interesting.
They don't do that anymore. Now they have to do these kind of the more virtue signal. They've done this over the past several years. It's gone downhill. It's turned the Oscars into a joke, in my opinion. They weren't
have
great
been a joke, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not that they were great before, but along with the fact that they're not relevant because things have changed, just the media landscape, and the fact that like they choose all these kind of indies with all these kind of big campaigns with money and virtue signaling, they've become basically unwatchable. These Oscars, and they dipped. It was the least amount of people that ever viewed the Oscars, and I can understand why.
Well, it was actually the third lowest, but
never mind. The trajectory.
But in modern times, yeah, you're right. Actually, yeah.
The trajectory is going down. I don't know the exact numbers.
And it was funny considering they actually had it live on Hulu as well as on ABC.
Nobody was like, in my opinion, maybe they were pretending to, but nobody was really popping bottles of champagne after seeing the numbers for this thing.
No, but you're right. And they always used to nominate films that people had seen, but usually it was some pretentious indie film that would win. A great example here is Annie Hall. Now, the difference here is like Annie Hall, I feel like was one of those films that was still part of the conversation until Woody Allen's image went down the shitter. As soon as that happened, then everybody stopped talking about most of his films. Before that, Annie Hall was still a movie that people talked about for years.
Yeah, Woody
That's
Allen.
one of the few that I used to see an argument for, but now looking back on it, it's like, yeah, now we definitely don't talk about Annie Hall anymore.
I mean, the thing is that I think that Woody Allen is a weirdo, and I think that what he did was a mistake. But I also am not sure that everything that was said about him in the press is exactly right either. But
Yeah.
when you're that high profile and you make certain decisions in your life, they're
he didn't help his own image, that's for sure.
Right. I mean, the thing is that, you know, I think that the picture is a bit more complex than what like the narrative that's always pushed by the public. But at the same time, even the more complex picture can change a few things of optics there that are very not good looking.
Exactly.
And generally speaking, if you're an old dude, maybe you know, don't shit where you eat, you know?
Yeah.
That's probably
to a point. That's one way of putting it, I guess. But anyhow, we got this one already. But
that's it. That's my quote. If you're an old dude, don't shit where you eat. That solves the whole Woody Allen issue.
Hunter Dvorak sends in a $4.99 super chat and says, "What are you talking about when the best Bob Dylan performance actually was John C. Reilly in Walk Hard?" I don't disagree. He did a good job. He did a good job as Johnny Cash in that too. Yeah, John C. Reilly knocks it out of the park in Walk Hard. It's a great film. Action Com says, I want to see Tom do a parody of Subterranean Homesick Blues. I want to see Tom holding the signs and throwing them away. Star Wars sucks now. Everybody knows it how. I don't know. Whatever the fuck. Star Trek and Doctor Who. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to sit down and write it all out, man. It takes a while. They now suck and they're all gay. Who wants to watch them anyway? That's a good tune, though. Jason Webster says in 5 and says, I don't... That's one of those few songs that only Bob could sing. Like, he has like those handful of songs that I won't accept anybody else's versions of. Because I mean, going
one more cup of coffee for the road.
Yeah,
that's like a very Bob Dylan song.
Yeah, there's a few of his songs that no, I don't want to hear anybody else's. Fuck that, no. Rolling Stone is the same way.
That's probably my favorite Bob Dylan song, by the way. One more cup of coffee for the road. I don't know why I like that song so much. I like it.
I was kind of happy that one of my favorites of his is actually prominent in the film, and that was
no, mine wasn't.
Think Twice. Well, yeah, I know that's the problem, and that's what I said. Is that's the problem with his career? Is he's got such a broad range of stuff.
Don't Think Twice is more like, you know, listen, I like the song, but it's one of those more for the masses, and I like the song, I'm not gonna lie.
I like his version best. That's
right. I know, I don't want anybody else's version. And also, How Do You Feel, whatever, there were things in the movie that were here, they're his songs, and I don't think that anybody else should sing them. But for me, like, you know, a deep cut, like One More Cup of Coffee for the Road, and the whole album,
that's much more of a deep cut.
Blonde on Blonde, which was that? I'm trying to think what's the name of that specific one, but it doesn't matter. I like the whole album where that song is on.
Lay, lady, lay across my big breast bed. Jason Webster sends in 5 Australia and says, I don't numerous people just how many hit songs musicians like Bob. I don't think he means numerous people know just how many hit songs musicians like Bob Dylan and Barry Gibb wrote. Not just musicians, they were our master songwriters. Yeah, what's sad about the Bee Gees movie is that Ridley Scott is letting his ego get in the way of that. I don't know if you guys heard about that. Because he says he won't do it for any less than his set budget. And Paramount's like, fuck off.
Fuck off!
Yeah. It's like, what? Why do you need so damn much money to make a Bee Gees movie? Two Penny Puppet says, before I watched the new Daredevil, I wanted to watch Netflix's Daredevil and Punisher. They moved them over to Prime for $30 a season, bastards. What?
That or you gotta watch them on D+. I
was gonna say they're on D+, I thought.
Sounds like he's not sub to D+. He's trying to not have to give money to D+, is my educated guess.
Army matey. That's all I can say. Army matey.
Arr.
But make sure you be using Surfshark.
Surfshark.
You don't want to be getting locked up. Jason Webster says Parasite winning Best Picture at the 92nd Academy Awards was a wake-up call to Hollywood to make better films. No, it was a virtue signal, Jason. It was the best film among the nominees. Hollywood didn't heed the call. No, I disagree wholeheartedly. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is one of Tarantino's greatest fucking films. And all of his movies are amazing. So, like, to say that, and even he was just kind of like flabbergasted by the whole situation. And that was one of the few times I'm like, I agree with you, buddy. Because he's like, this is one of my best works ever. You know, like, what the fuck? And he has been snubbed so goddamn badly by the Academy. He's like the new Scorsese. Yes, he got his Oscar for writing Pulp Fiction, but he's never really gotten anything else, has he? I don't think. Did he win Best Director ever? I don't think he ever did. Or did he get it for Django, but Django didn't win Best Picture, I think it was. Did he ever win another one? I don't think he did. Somebody correct me in the chat if I'm wrong.
What?
I think he's only got the one Oscar for writing Pulp Fiction, right?
I'm trying to think. Maybe that's the only one.
I don't think he won
has.
director for Django. I was trying to remember if he won, and then
maybe. I thought he won. It's hard. I don't remember now. Let me look.
Okay, he did win for Django. That's what I thought. Yeah, but the movie didn't win Best Picture.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
I think that was the case.
Yeah, he has two. I guess.
He got 2 for Best Original Screenplay. That's what it was. He didn't win for director. Yeah.
Oh, and that's why
Mikey, I love you, but you need to stop that. Stop it now.
What happened?
He's saying that Ridley Scott's better than Tarantino.
Yeah, I Quentin Tarantino is awesome, and I
Tarantino
think
don't need 10 versions of each one of his movies.
And I think that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is where they needed to give him the director, and the fact that they gave it to Bong Joon-ho and they didn't put that in the foreign film still annoys. I won't go off on another rant. Really annoys me to this very day.
No, and again, that's the sad part, because I agree with you. It's like, it's not like I'm sitting here saying that Parasite is a bad film necessarily. I'm just saying that it didn't belong in that category. And I disagree with your take, Jason, that there was no better films that year, because clearly Once Upon a Time Hollywood was the runaway hit, in my opinion. But it just didn't get the awards, and I think it was just because they were trying to be so fucking woke. That was also right around the time that they were doing the Oscars so white thing too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
That was 2014 where it started. I don't know how many years it carried on, but the Oscars were so white initially.
It was the I remember now what happened. I know this is going to sound weird, but this is what I think. At the time, it was just the beginning. We were hearing from China that there was this coup thing going on, and then people were talking about Asia and about what's his face, Asia and diseases and things like that.
You're 100% correct, because the Oscars would have been right in the heart of that shit.
Because it already started in November, December.
Late
started
2019, exactly. Yeah.
Right, and then by the time they got here, it's like, oh, people are saying it's like the stigma, like Asian people, these guys. And you know what's stupid? That was China, and these are Korean, but they're just like, fuck it, like they're Asian enough. Let's just give these Asians. We'll say they're the best picture, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? You have a foreign category. It's a foreign language movie. Put it in the right category. You have people who made movies that have like a much wider international reach, English-based movies, and that's what this category is supposed to be. And to push Tarantino aside to give that guy the Oscar, have an issue with it. I still have an issue. Had an issue then, have an issue today, and I think I'll always feel that way. But I don't want to take it out on Jun Bong Ho. I keep saying his name wrong. Is it Jun Bong Ho? What do I know? Close enough.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Jun Bong Ho it is.
Yes. Flying Blind on a Rocket Cycle sends in 10 and says, while I don't think Battleship was very good, if you tell me you're going to have the Battleship Missouri getting underway to AC/DC's Thunderstruck, I'm there. Well, Mikey's here now. He can tell you just how great that movie is. Two Penny Puppet says, my local theater has Raiders Marathon this Saturday. Oh, nice. I'm surprised Disney would allow that. Or actually, Paramount owns those, don't they? The first ones. Well, they're kind of a co-thing. I can't remember exactly how it works out, but I think Paramount has the distribution. Jason Webster says, Tom, I sent you an email on how you can save the Academy Awards. Well, I'll check that out. I'll try and get back to you on that as soon as I can. But with that, we're going to wrap things up here because we're losing price anyway, so we'll let you go first, and then we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, so tonight we have the Quantum Leap stream at 10 p.m. on my live stream channel. It's called Price of Reason Live, which you should all be subscribed to if you like these streams. You should subscribe to Price of Reason Live because there's some cool things going on there. And then at 11:45 p.m. on my live stream channel, there is The Night Owl with Professor R2. You guys should check that out.
All right. And Nick, what you got going on?
I'll be on TNT tonight. I think we'll be talking Daredevil Born Again there. And tomorrow night in Klobby's Comic Shop, me and the boys will be talking the Daredevil Born Again comic. This is the actual comic that the show's taken the name from, even though the show is technically already adapted loosely in season 3. So we're going to talk about the comic so we can fill in the normies on what the story truly was like. So other than that, next week, Toxic Tuesday, we got the 3-way, the Meadoverse crossover, MEAD, Toxic Tuesday, and then the Night Owl, where all 3 of us are going to be on all 3 shows. And we're also talking Jason Statham's Crank for Toxic Tuesday. So
absolutely
huge. And also keep your eye out for my video next week on Daredevil comics to read before or after watching Born Again. So that video should finally be out soon. But yeah, been good to be here.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
All right, sounds good. Take care of yourself, folks, and we will see you next time. Thank you, Jason Webster, for the last minute $2 super chat. Another great show, guys. Thank you for the support. And I'll check in your email as soon as I get a chance, Jason. Cute kitty.